welcome to Noni, Yanga's flagship talk show where we discuss all the hot topics. Today we look at the stereotypical representations of black men in society, and we look at the new measures put in place to tackle race inequality in the workplace. Joining me today, broadcaster Lape Banjo and editor-in-chief of Glam Africa magazine, Afia Adom. Welcome, ladies. Hello. Nice to talk to you. Indeed. Black men have and continue to be subjected to many negative stereotypes. Research shows that the media overrepresent black males in depictions of violence, crime and poverty. In the industry has often been scrutinised for perpetuating these negative stereotypes. More shockingly, these stereotypes have made their way into the education system. Recently, a GCSE sociology textbook which claims fathers and husbands are largely absent from Caribbean families has been withdrawn following outrage on social media. The comments have been labelled dangerous and damaging, particularly as there is no social or historical context. How damaging are examples like this to the black male identity? That's a silly question, really, because we know how damaging they are. I actually want to read what it says, and we'll probably put that on the screen. It said, in Caribbean families, the fathers and husbands are largely absent and women assume the most responsibility in child rearing. It adds, the family system is also categorised by child shifting, that is, the passing of children to other relatives or acquaintances if the parents find themselves unable to take care of them. As a result, multiple women are involved in child socialisation. I mean, that is... Somebody stop.
What? I can't even finish my sentences.
You can't start the word.
Do you know what? I've got a really interesting view on this, right?
Well,
go on, Lape.
And the reason why I say my view is interesting is because sometimes, right, when people say things like this, before we actually sit down and think about it, we automatically, and we're all guilty of it, we automatically think, hang on a second, is this an attack on my race? Is it an attack on my culture? But sometimes things that are said, we're very quick to disregard it, but there's elements. What are you saying, Lape? What I'm trying to say is that there's elements of truth to this.
Lape, this is outrageous.
No, wait. I'm getting onto something.
Okay.
I think there's elements of truth to absent fathers, full stop. I don't think that it's, you know, is special to one race or people from a certain part of the world. Now, the reason why I think this text is dangerous is because it doesn't explain why these things happen. Yeah. It doesn't talk about inequality in, the fact that there's a huge amount of unemployment. There's discrimination in employment for men of colour. There's also the fact that, you know, our culture isn't just nuclear families. It's,
okay, I get what you're saying. Let me just give a stat quickly. And I understand what you're saying. Sometimes, yeah, it is true. We don't like some of the critiques we get on TV or in the media, but it can be said to be true, like with gang crime and hoodies and stopping kids on the street. Sometimes you need to be stopped because you're carrying a knife. I get that, but let me give you this stat. The lone parent charity Gingerbread says that 21% of single parents are from black or minority ethnic backgrounds, compared with 16% nationally.
I actually saw that.
And that's black and minority ethnic.
I actually saw that.
The problem with this is, I do understand what you're saying, that there is an element of truth, and there is the stats. You have the stats. It says in there we have a higher percentage of single parent families in black and minority ethnic groups. However, this is written down in black and white in an educational manual. Yeah.
So therefore, this is institutionalized racism. I'm sorry.
You are drip feeding children of all races, all colours, and whatever age group. I think it was a GCSE. Yeah. So around 15, 16
and it's been withdrawn.
Old.
Yeah, no, it has. Yeah, it has.
It's very,
I completely
very
agree
dangerous.
with you that it's dangerous.
This is written down in black and white, and this is education.
But you do agree that this is sociology, right?
It is sociology.
It's not science. You can't actually find evidence to say this X amount of fathers from Caribbean families.
But in this textbook, there is no statistics like Juliana's just
But
read.
there's no social or historical context.
Exactly,
and
like
that's
it's just
what I'm
read.
saying by the
it's
context.
too dangerous.
It is dangerous. I completely agree with you. And I'm saying the reason why it's dangerous is because the context that should be there is things that we should be talking about. The fact that there's disparities between race and employment.
And
there's disparities in opportunities.
So that's what should be in the text.
I understand what you mean, but if we're talking about truths and the fact that, yes, some would say there is a truth, there's a truthful element, and I wouldn't even just say...
No, my two arguments are separate. Okay. I'm saying, yes, it's an element of truth, but the text is still dangerous. The reason why the text is dangerous is because it doesn't provide enough context to say as to why, you know, men are absent fathers full stop. stop. There's mental health
I'm
issues.
sorry, I don't think that it can, the way that it's written, I know what you're saying. I know we are kind of agreeing. That
We all agree that it's wrong and it's dangerous.
But there's no excuse and there's no way you can explain away this being written down in a GCSE textbook.
And also, in fact, just to buttress your point as well, I think another reason why you can't explain why is because it completely singles it out. It doesn't just say black men, it's quite specific.
To one
Caribbean.
Caribbean.
And we're all African, but the Caribbeans are our brothers and sisters.
But there's
How
no
does this, let me ask
justification.
a question. We've given our opinion. If you're a 15-year-old boy, your dad isn't at home, you're a single, you've been raised by a single mum, and you read this, how does that make you feel?
This is what I mean about the effect on mental health that it does. It's a vicious cycle.
And to
you
be
can't
honest,
feed that kind of information and expect young kids are in a diverse classroom not to be asked and questioned that, okay, so well, if we're going to put this to test, we'll ask all the black people in the room that are from Caribbean background.
How many of you have got your dad at home?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Shocking.
ridiculous.
But it's immediately you're going to feel singled out, you're going to feel victimized, and if that is your situation, you're going to be like, wow, this is a societal problem. I'm
This
part
is
of a
true.
We're talking
problem.
about society. Let's take this wider then. Let's talk about media in general. Put the textbook aside, it was wrong. How do you think black men are portrayed in the media? Is it getting better?
And this is why they could even write those kind of things in books,
absolutely.
because the way, no, I don't think they're portrayed in a positive light at
all.
all.
Oh, of course not.
At all.
Do what you're saying, absolutely right. No.
No, I was saying it's absolutely the fault of the media, which is what I was going to say. I mean, I was watching a preview for a program on some channel. I was reading about it, and it was basically about really rich kids that go and live with quote unquote everyday families. And it was a really rich white girl. She was maybe about 19, 20, had a 50k BMW, and of course the family that she was going to live with for a week was a black single mum with 3 kids who's on benefits. And I just thought, you are continually perpetuating these stereotypes. And the channel, I'm not going to name the channel here, but I thought, and it's a channel that's done similar types of things before, similar documentaries about gang violence and knife crime. And I just think you are constantly, irresponsibly, even after the backlash that you have had, perpetuating these stereotypes. And the thing is, the only way this is going to change is if you have people at the table making these decisions who are of the minorities that are marginalised constantly.
Thank you. Remember the small, sweet little black boy with the monkey on the T-shirt.
Or the H&M.
The H&M. Yeah. Obviously, clearly, there was just nobody in marketing or
who was black.
Well, you say that, but then his mum was annoyed when everybody backlashed.
Because she wants her son to have money now. Come on. Of course.
No, that's not good enough.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it may not be good enough, but sometimes this is the problem, isn't it? There isn't someone that's saying, actually, mate, I think that picture's a bit demeaning. Actually, can we just reword that?
Or let's swap the kids around. Like, there's nobody at the table who's saying, actually, if I was black and I saw that, I would think that's a bit wrong. Switch the kids around. It's that simple. There's nobody at the table who has that level of
and it's not
sense.
just H&M. It goes, across a lot of brands.
Even you've noticed, even with JD Sports and all these other sporting
Nike is
brands,
so diverse now, isn't it?
You just find that so many young black kids in a hoodie, they've kind of capitalised on that whole look, haven't they?
But they're not represented in the branding or the marketing.
Nope.
So it's
how do we change this narrative? And Lape, you did kind of mention on it, and I suppose some viewers would agree with you that there are some truths to this.
There are some truths to it. There are some truths to it, absolutely. But like I said,
no, the truth I'm underlining and I'm highlighting is the fact that there are absent fathers, full stop.
But
that has told us stop.
There's absent fathers across all races.
Yeah, exactly.
All races.
So it shouldn't just be singled out to
absolutely,
not only black, but to black Caribbean men. It's just so bizarre. But I think at the same time, yes, we do have that issue within the black community worldwide, not just in England, right? Now, how do we solve that problem? Which is why I think that this article was really, really uninformed. It was badly written because it's sociology. I did sociology at school. We did sociology at school. And what happens is you bring in external factors. What are the factors that contribute to these kind of things? And that's where you begin to educate children from not from that background.
But like I said, the only way you're going to get there, for that to be in the textbook in the first place, for it to be put in context with all the sociological and historical backgrounds that we talked about, is if you have someone who is, guess what, black, Caribbean and male helping
Well,
write the
actually,
book.
do you know what,
That's
right?
the
To
only
counter your
way.
point, what I will say is, to counter your point is, in the sociology kind of industry, as I would like, I mean, if that's how you want to put it, in the sociology kind of background, academically, they're actually quite diverse. So,
But
I
obviously
mean,
the diversity
but it
didn't
doesn't
reach
reach
this
this. Yeah,
textbook.
now that's the difference.
Yeah, and the
Well,
thing is, they can be diverse, but you know, the higher you climb, it just gets paler and paler
yeah,
and paler.
yeah.
I'm
And that's
sorry
the
to say
same
it,
with-
guys, it's true.
With
No,
so
it's true.
many industries, it's absolutely the same thing. I
Yeah.
think we talked about when we were talking about imposter syndrome, and we were saying that, you know, if you can't see yourself and you're the only black female CEO and you're not reflected anywhere else where there's black
Yeah.
female CEOs, then yes, you will have imposter
Very,
syndrome.
very interesting discussion. We kind of agree that it's wrong, but just the ways we need to tackle this,
Yeah,
you know, it's still
is what
under
we
debate,
differ on,
aren't
yeah.
they? Still to come, we take a look at the issue of racial inequality in the workplace. See you after the break. Welcome back. Now, the British government has announced a Race at Work Charter containing a series of measures to tackle the issue of ethnic inequality in the workplace. Employers could be forced to release mandatory ethnicity pay gap reporting in a bid to help address disparities between the pay and career prospects of minorities. Research shows that people from an ethnic minority background are more likely to experience discrimination in recruitment, promotion and pay reward decisions. An audit launched by London Mayor Sadiq Khan found that the city's black and minority ethnic public employees were paid up to 37% less on average than their white counterparts. How significant will this step be to ensuring race equality in the workplace?
First things first, I have 3 really important things to say.
One.
Number 1, they're really shooting themselves in the foot by doing this.
Why?
Because what's going to happen, it's going to come out and there's going to be a huge disparity, and then it's going to be a massive uproar, and then they're not going to
Will
know how
there
to...
be an uproar? Oh, any of us, the
exactly,
editors of
exactly.
big newspapers?
Exactly my point, exactly. So there will be an uproar, but will anything actually be done?
No,
That's when...
it won't.
Exactly. Secondly, why is this coming out after the gender?
Because none of us are at the top.
Yep.
I think it was a couple of the ladies in EastEnders. If you're hiring, I need a job.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Why is this, like I said, why is this not before gender? And more importantly, why does a pay gap between races actually exist?
I know.
The thing is, I think I agree with every single point that you've made. I think when the gender pay gap thing came out, the race, and when it started, a major
I noticed race
broadcaster-
first with the gender pay gap.
Oh, absolutely.
I looked for the
Yeah.
black women and we were like,
way down.
Under
and
the
thing
table.
Is,
Completely.
when it started at that major broadcasting company and it came out, my first thing was, okay, where are the black women right down there, right? And so I thought about a week later, the rate, and someone sort of mentioned it, it was mentioned
Yes,
on socials.
yes.
But of course it didn't make any of the major papers because, like you said, none of the editors are, you know,
Yeah.
all
Doesn't
black.
affect them.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't affect them. Now, when this comes out and when we say that there's differences in pay between white and black colleagues, what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
this is disgusting, isn't it,
Nothing.
ladies?
Because
It will just tell us what we already know.
But who is going to come out gunning for black people at work?
Yeah.
Nobody. Nothing is going
Well,
to
you're
happen.
saying that this is quite an
because-
old story, and I haven't heard any of them
But-
talking
But
about
this
it.
is
Exactly.
the thing. What are you going to do to counteract it? You're going to either have to pour 37% more money. I've just made up that statistic. I don't know how much, but X amount percent
You're on the money.
of more money
Yeah.
into companies to pay your black people more, or you're going to have to pay white people less.
Less.
Is
Do you know,
that
it's-
going to happen? No.
Again, just 3% of UK employers measure their ethnicity or disability pay
Of
gaps.
course, in fact, that statistic, yeah, 3%.
So this
in fact,
You look like you deserve more money.
I was
Yeah.
reading The Guardian yesterday. And I
Like
think it said
literally,
60%
that
they
is
don't- yeah.
the reality of
Yes.
this.
You have
You
10 pence.
look
you
like
have
you
20.
deserve
Yeah.
more.
No, it's sad. I mean, I was reading The Guardian yesterday, and it did say that the statistic I read was that actually 60% of companies don't actually release that information. Why aren't you releasing it?
Yeah.
Have you got something to hide?
Of course
Yeah.
they do.
And like-
but also the information that's released, are we going to believe it? If there's a company up there that says we pay all our employees, men, women, black, white, rich or poor, the same, I don't know if I would
I
believe
think
it.
people as well, I think, especially in Britain, you're worried about speaking out, aren't you?
Yeah.
People aren't speaking openly. People are scared to talk
Yeah.
about how much they're being paid.
Because look what happens to whistleblowers.
Yes.
You've seen it
Yes.
in the NHS, in government,
Yeah.
in massive organisations. If
Financial.
you're a whistleblower, it's not good for you.
You're not getting employed,
It's
darling.
not.
You can say bye to that
fired.
job.
You're fired.
Bye,
But it's-
Felicia.
but, you know, I've been in a situation at some previous positions where there are white males younger than me, you know, fresh out of university, no experience, on exactly the same amount of money, and it's sad.
So do you know,
And
I've
can
never
feel
actually
it.
experienced that, but just listening to you talk about it and watching how this whole story unravels is shocking. So are you telling me that when someone comes into an interview, right, and they're a black woman and there's a, you know, young white guy
Or a white woman.
or a white woman, based on something that they cannot change, you're going to pay that person more.
It's
So
awful.
based on the
Absolutely.
way they look, you
It's
value them
really-
more, you think that they're better for the job with no experience.
But also
probably.
better for the company image. It's all
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's
all
shocking.
that.
So
Dare
are
come to
we
the
still-
interview in an afro.
Are we still fighting racial inequality then? In
Yeah, but it's very
100%.
institutionalized. And I think that's what you mentioned. It's not in America where it's very in your face.
Yeah,
you know
you
what
got
I mean?
people fighting for
Yeah,
you.
but it,
Fight for you, my
yeah,
sister.
exactly.
But it's not like
It's
that
just
here.
very, very mental here, and it's very institutionalized. It's very nuanced. You can't
It's
really
subtle, isn't it?
very subtle, very subtle. And I think that's the danger because you're always second guessing yourself, which is what we were saying about the imposter syndrome. You're constantly second guessing yourself. Am I going to be an angry black female right now if I react?
Do
like
I
this?
deserve more?
Do I deserve
Do I
more?
deserve
Exactly.
more?
You constantly
Exactly.
second guess yourself as a result of those structures.
I think it's absolutely disgusting, but I definitely think this is a good start. At least the government
conversation.
for the government, for a conservative government to
yeah,
give
that
this
is
a
big,
green
but
light.
yeah,
But
yeah.
this
It
is
must
the
be
thing.
more serious than we even know.
It could
But
also
this
be
is
lip service as well.
Exactly what I was going to
So
say.
it's lip
This is the
service.
thing. It could just be a smokescreen. So we'll put out the report,
Yeah.
commission the report.
That's
we'll
what-
put
that's
out
what
the report.
Theresa May did
But
last year.
What are you going to
do about it.
afterwards? And the only reason, like I said before, the only way this is going to change is if you have people at the top who are the people that are marginalised who can change it.
Why do you think,
Otherwise,
why
it won't
do you think it is
happen.
happening? We said it could be as simple as someone saying, right, this is a blonde Susie.
No,
or
this is
black
why
Juliana.
this is why it's
Why?
happening. I think naturally, you know, we're all very different. Everybody's diverse. We live in London, you know, that kind of thing, and everyone comes from very different backgrounds, has
Different schooling.
different schooling, and we all naturally prejudge. You know, whether we like it or not, whether it's subconscious, whether it's consciously, we kind of naturally prejudge, and it's now getting over that conscious bias that we kind of need to overcome. And I say this because, I mean, I remember when I was fresh out of uni and I was applying for jobs, I was always told, "Oh, don't put your name or your address."
Oh my God.
Because
we
they
need
might
to talk about that.
Yeah, because they might judge where
too.
you live.
Oh my
and,
God.
and
I never had the address thing. I definitely had the name.
the name as
The
well.
surname.
I mean, you meet so
Wow,
many
that is so
actors
serious.
that are
Yeah.
of colour. Actors that have changed their name 'cause
Absolutely.
just to get more doors open for them. So the prejudgment is
Wow.
going on.
Wow.
Oh, it
I even
absolutely
suggested
is.
blind interviews, but why should we have to eliminate our names from our CVs, our address, and now have to do blind interviews because somebody isn't, you know, educated enough or emotionally intelligent enough to say, look, I'm judging
and
you
you lie
based
on your
your
CV, you get called out,
Yeah,
don't
and
you?
you get
It's a
called out.
vicious- it's
and
a
then they
vicious
just
really is.
straight
cycle.
on your social media as well to check, you know, what kind of, it's just, is this person pro-black? Is this person, do you know what
And
I mean?
that's the next thing.
Yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
it's too
so,
much.
there's so many issues. I'm like huffing and puffing here, like, God, we could talk about that, we could talk about this. But it's true, some people even have to change their name. So do you think, Afia, they're doing it just because they can get away with it?
Absolutely. That's the only reason why they're doing it. And also because I think there's a sense of, look, I know what I know because I am one. So let me stick with that. I don't want to get an
I know
angry
how
black woman.
how
and I
much
don't want-
holidays cost abroad.
Exactly, and I don't necessarily want this type of person or this type of person. People like what they know. They like to be comfortable, and they can get away with it. They can get away with sadly not picking Lappe for an interview. Or if I do decide to employ Lappe, then I'm going to pay so much less than someone else who has
Yeah.
less experience than her because I can. It's because I can.
We're going to be wrapping up now, but what kind of advice then do we give to women, men, black males and females that, you know, they do think, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I am still struggling. I'm still struggling to get to work. I'm working a full time. How do you kind of tackle this without, you know, fear of appearing too desperate in front of your boss?
That's a really good question. And I think the answer is something that probably we don't actually have yet because it's an ongoing thing. Like, how do we overcome it? Things like this, these conversations that we're having,
They're really important.
Yeah,
Really
the awareness, because then when you are given, you know, this is how much I'm paying you, or this is how you come to this interview,
tackle it.
you can actually
Push
argue it
back,
because you now know that you have the right. And yes, this happened, you know, before the civil rights movement and stuff like that, when black people couldn't even vote. I mean, the awareness was created, somebody championed it, and then we are where we are today. Now, I think for a conversation like this, because like I said earlier, it's so nuanced that you have to be really careful how you play it. So we need that data, and we need something.
We need
done.
the data.
We need the data to know exactly where we stand. And what I will say is that, you know, one employer, I mean, if we're talking about advice, one employer shouldn't be kind of like your be all and end all.
Yes.
It shouldn't really kind of define you or embody you,
yes.
and it shouldn't be what the money that defines who you
about
are.
knowing
Not
your
all
values.
of us are as lucky
It's
as
true.
you.
It's true.
Sister
It's very easy for me to say, but at the same time, I'm sounding very utopian and like, you know,
We love it.
inspirational.
Look at us. We're kind of like,
But no, because it's true. Like you
No, it's true.
cannot live your life and be, you know, valued by how much you're paid. Or
that's for another Nonny topic. We're going to wrap up. It just goes too quick with you guys.
It does.
That's it for me, Juliana Oluyinka, and my fantastic guests, Lakme Banjo and Afia Adam. Don't forget, Nonny is now online wherever you are in the world. Go to www.yankatv.com to check out every single episode. Join me next time for more Nonny Chat. Goodbye.